Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show, and the Cutting Edge Benefits podcast with our other host, Anthony McMahon. Anthony, we continue to talk about how amazing this solution is. I already know it because the bottom line is that if you can provide better benefits for your employees, they're going to be happier, healthier, and more productive. And you're going to save money at the same time. So many small business owners and medium-sized businesses need this, don't they?
Yes, yes, they do.
So let's kind of dive deeper into this and talk about the topic you want to talk about today.
Yeah, so as I was saying to you right before we jumped on, we're having a new leader start in sales for us. And she had some great questions as she was getting onboarded, learning our solution, going through the case studies, kind of, learning the ins and outs of how we set everything up. And, at the conclusion of it, she essentially was like, why would any business not do this? I don't really understand. And on today's podcast, I definitely want to go through, busting some myths of why these business owners typically do not do this, why companies don't do this in general, and, why that really doesn't make sense when you actually drill down and think of that.
Okay, let's go with it. Let's go with uh let's go with specifically some of these myths because this is so amazing. We have so many things that I think are just fantastic. Why doesn't everybody do this? And then the myths come. Go.
Yeah, for sure. So from the business owner's end, in my opinion, the number one reason they don't do it is because they don't want to deal with it. They view it as a cost of doing business. They're focused on a million different things within the company every single day, growing revenue, putting out fires with clients or vendors, employee issues, making sure that they hire the right talent. They're dealing with a thousand different things at once. And from what I've seen over the last few years is that they just kick this off to HR or finance. And then HR and finance, they're in a role where it's not their business, it's not their money. So they don't want to rock the boat with something that they view as unproven, even though we've been doing this for 25 years. They view it as unproven because their broker and agent who they've been working with for a while has never shown it to them. So they have no real incentive or skin in the game to ultimately make a decision that's going to alter the benefits, even though the outcome on the other end will be significant. So I think overall, from what I'm seeing and hearing, over the last few years, is that business owners, they're focused on other things. They're focused on growing the business, putting out fires. They kick it off to HR and finance, and then those folks are not in a position to make a decision that they feel could be risky, could rock the boat, could have people questioning, why they switched to something that is unheard of in their opinion. So that was the main genesis of what I told her. And then also, another thing that people don't realize is that most of these relationships are long-standing in terms of the broker and agent that are working with the business owner. It might be their, frat brother, it might be the sorority sister, it might be their brother-in-law, it might be, their best friend from growing up. And these relationships, they're not built on, logic. They're not built on statistics. They're built on, bonding, and they're built on trust, which is extremely important. And I'm not going to dismiss that whatsoever, but there's not a deep analysis that most aspects of business, would partake to make sure that this is the right decision. They're just based on a recommendation from a long-standing relationship that they have with somebody that they know for a long time. So those are a mix of all the reasons I think business owners don't do this, is that their best friend or their family member is typically their agent or broker. They don't want to disrupt that. They're focused on running the business, the day-to-day is putting out fire, growing revenue. They don't really think of employee benefits as this huge strategic opportunity for them. And when it gets kicked off to HR and finance, those folks are really have no incentive, no skin in the game, and it's not their money that they would be, gaining by putting this in place and saving, what our clients save.
That's see, I think that's very interesting. And how do you breach that and say, oh, by the way, this is a very important person who's selling to us?
So it's tough, you know. We go about it a couple different ways. I mean, sometimes you really just have to say what it is, and that person, can shift to a different role. They could also get compensated as a consultant in other medians. If their compensation from Blue Cross Blue Shield or from Aetna or from Cigna by writing these policies is whatever, $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year, and we take it over and they no longer get that commission, but we're saving the business $250,000, $500,000. I mean, technically, the business owner can just write that person a check for $20,000 to $30,000 per year to be a paid consultant, so they don't lose that level of income if it means that much to them. Or business owners sometimes they instruct that broker, that agent, like, hey, you could still be lead agent, lead broker on this, but you need to work with ClaimLinx in tandem with ClaimLinx and put in place the type of policies and plans that they need with their solution to get the outcome that we're seeking. So I would say either, pay them to basically step away if they don't, want to hurt their income levels, they could just bring them on as a paid consultant, or they could have them work with us but make sure that they're following our guide, our lead, to make sure that the employees and the business is getting the outcome that we want. That's what I've recommended to business owners. They've done both, but there's also been some business owners that aren't willing to cut off that relationship or make those changes, and it sucks because it hurts the business, it hurts the employees, and it hurts the future growth of that company.
And that's what happens. Okay, another myth.
Yeah, another myth, and this has been coming up time and time again, is that you can't have different plans on primary insurance for your employees, even though it makes more sense for them financially, it makes more sense for them network wise. It's not compliant to do, and that's just straight up not true. We have letters from the Department of Labor that state otherwise, that when you offer a medical expense reimbursement plan, you could do all sort of primary coverages for your employees. You could have employees on all different individual plans. You could do multiple group plans. You could do one group plan with individual plans. As long as all of the employees underneath are getting the same exact deductible, same copays, same prescription copays, same network access, it's fine. You just need to make sure it's uniform and non-discriminatory. And by doing that, you're improving benefits, you're lowering costs, and you're giving a better outcome to your employee base because you're able to customize this based on your group specifically. The problem with small employers and the way that agents and brokers write their policies is that, they might have 10 people, 15 people, 20 people. If anybody within that group is on a high cost drug, has a chronic or acute health condition, or is just old, it's going to balloon the rates not only for that individual person, but it's going to balloon the rates for the entire company. So why would you do that to the rest of your employees that would otherwise get a significantly lower rate? Why not separate out those risks, the high risk folks and the low risk folks, from the insurance carrier's perspective, get the cost as low as humanly possible, both for the employees and the business, and then give back the employees better benefits through the MERP that's uniform, non-discriminatory, and compliant. So that's another big myth that I keep seeing time and time again. Oh, you can't do multiple primary plans. And the answer is yes, you can. As long as you give the employees the same benefits underneath through the MERP, you can do that.
Okay. Other myths.
There's too many myths to bust, I think, on this episode, but I think the two that I wanted to cover was just number one, why would a business, never do this? And there's a lot of reasons. It's a lot of emotion. That's the problem. At the end of the day, it's emotion. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to rock this boat. I don't want to sever this relationship. It's all emotional. It's not a logical decision to not put this into place. And, we're seeing a ton of new businesses come to us this year, thankfully, in efforts of this podcast, our marketing department, and everything that we're doing with our clients, them referring people over. So we are bringing on a ton of new businesses, and they're all listening, but not everybody's doing it because of these emotional ways. So that was the first one I wanted to cover. And the second one was the two primary plans. It's just not true. And I think a third one would be, you don't want to work with somebody who's based on how much, or who is compensated based on how much money that they save you. That's not an ideal relationship, which to me makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you instead work with a broker and agent that every time your costs go up, their commissions go up? Why instead would you not want to work with a company like ClaimLinx that every time you save a dollar, we then make more money? We're doing everything in our power in the setup, the implementation, the management to keep your costs down, your employees' costs as low as possible. So those are the three big myths. I would say number one, why do not all business owners do this? The answer is just emotion or non-involvement. Number two is why are you allowed to have, two different or three different or multiple different primary plans for employees? The answer is because you're offering them better benefits that are uniform and non-discriminatory underneath through the MERP. And then the third is really just the last thing that I covered there. So I think there's just myths across the board in the health insurance industry. We're trying to simplify it. We're trying to, make sure that our skin's in the game, our clients are getting better outcomes, and that our business is growing as they achieve the results that we're promising.
All right. Well, this is great information. Go to claimlinx.com right now and you can schedule with Anthony and this team today. Appreciate it, Anthony.
Yep. Thanks, Neil.
That was a special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show and the Cutting Edge Benefits